The Code Geass R3 movie isn't worth watching. Should it have even been made? So what's up guys, Foxen here. As some of you may know, I just moved to Japan last week, and one of the things I just had to do was watch the Code Geass movie sequel in theaters. Otherwise, I wouldn't ever get a chance to see it, at least not for a while. I definitely wanted to share my thoughts with you, so here's my non-spoiler review. Keep in mind, I already did do a full spoiler breakdown on the Code Geass movie. Check that video out after. By the way, if you do have a spoiler question, feel free to ask down below, but do finish watching the full video first. So, let's go ahead and get started. Really quickly, let me just let you know where I'm coming from. So I loved the Code Geass anime growing up. It used to easily be in my top 10 anime of all time. Although to be honest, I'm not too sure about that anymore at this point. For this Code Geass Sequel, I was actually pretty excited when it got announced, but then disappointed and skeptical when this Code Geass project got revealed to be only one movie instead of an actual Code Geass anime season. So first off, let's actually start with the story. If you want a good summary for this movie, crap happens in the world and Lelouch has to come back to save the day. The movie. Or maybe that's just a more literal title. If you've seen the trailer in the first 5 minutes, you can pretty much piece together what's going to happen, no problem. In the actual story, I should mention that there's a lot of things left vague in this Code Geass movie, which may be a potential negative for a lot of you. If I recall, the original director and writer did come back for this, supposedly for the final time. This may partially explain the vague stuff, either since it's not really gonna be their problem, or really just so they could leave it to someone else to fill in the gaps later. Besides the quiet moments in the beginning with the past characters interacting with one another, one of the best things from this movie was actually seeing how everyone handled the returning of Lelouch. How did all of them deal with the sudden resurrection? And I do say that despite some of the reactions not exactly making too much sense if you really think about it. Next up, let me just go down character by character. First off, Lelouch. Unfortunately, to avoid spoilers, I really can't get into some of the details about Lelouch. But let's just say that Lelouch does feel a lot more human here, and perhaps I should say, more humbled. He doesn't really give off this persona of being this mastermind who has everything figured out like he did in the previous TV anime seasons. This may perhaps just be since he literally did die and complete his mission. And overall for Lelouch, I really can't say anything too bad about Lelouch in this movie. Let's just say it felt really nice to see Lelouch back and interacting with everyone post his supposed death. And regarding his actual death and resurrection, you'll find out some of the details in the movie, but once again, a lot of the stuff is intentionally kept vague. Also, if you heard some stuff online about Lelouch's death and resurrection being 100% confirmed, I'll just say that a lot of details I've seen have not actually been 100% accurate, since the movie itself does not even answer this stuff directly. Oh yeah, and about the updated Zero suit you've seen, they definitely just updated their Zero suit just to make a new figure. Next up, Suzaku. As you've seen from the first few trailers and the first couple of minutes from the movie, Suzaku is unfortunately captured and put out of commission. Naturally, this does affect Suzaku's screen time. And for this review, I was actually trying to think back to double check, but it really feels like Suzaku didn't really get to do too much here, besides his actual involvements in the action scenes and finale. There is a small interaction with him and Lelouch, but overall that discussion and conversation does seem to favor Lelouch and flesh him out more. Now that I'm really thinking about it, I really do wish there was a little bit more of Suzaku in terms of development. Next up, C2. No surprise that you're getting so much of C2 in this movie. Maybe even more than any other character except Lelouch. Definitely a lot more dialogue. I actually wish C2 spent a lot more time talking to Lelouch, but due to movie reasons, C2 couldn't exactly do that. On the other hand, C2 actually does get a fair amount of screen time with Karen. This was definitely a movie highlight. And regarding some of the actual Geass stuff connected with C2, once again a lot more vague stuff. At the beginning of the movie, C2 is really just traveling around trying to look for some of these other Geass temples around the world. And now that I think about it, there was one thing I was really hoping to happen between Lelouch and C2 that did not happen. After the movie, I was just thinking, why didn't they do that? This whole movie is pretty much just fan service anyway. Just a missed opportunity right there. And then for something else worth mentioning about C2, not really a negative or a positive, but it really feels like C2 is turning into the Piccolo of Code Geass. Oh, you guys got guns? Let's go ahead and shoot up the immortal chick who cannot die. Now, if they actually do that again in a sequel, I'm gonna be like, really? Again? Next up, Karen. Hopefully there's some Karen fans, since she was definitely one of the standout players for this Code Geass sequel. Teamwork is the name of the game for Karen. Karen actually got almost equal screen time to C2. And something once again I really loved about the movie was the teamwork between Karen and C2 just working together. Not to mention their quick chatter back and forth. Karen was also involved in some of the better action scenes of the movie. This involved Karen doing some hand-to-hand combat stuff. Once again teaming up, this time with the ninja maid lady. Next up, let me talk about the Code Geass villains. You got the blonde lady and Shario. The two big baddies of this movie is his brother and older sister combo. Sharia, as seen, is the one piloting that white, bulky nightmare. And let's just say the blonde lady is the one in the background pulling the strings of everything. Let me just go ahead and be honest and say that these villains are completely forgettable. Sharia in particular was supposed to be built up from all the trailers to be this grand challenge. But in the end, this whole sibling combo was really just a complete disappointment. Really, don't go into this movie expecting anything from them. And I was really trying to avoid saying it, but these villains really just feel like the bad guys that show up to make the protagonists look good. In this case, Lelouch, C2, Suzaku, and Kaden. Also, a little bit of a side note, there is some weird fanservice done with the brother and sister blonde combo. At one point you see the older sister bathing him in the shower room for whatever reason. And by the way, there is a nip slip for the blonde villain, although Code Geass has shown full boobage before. As for the other two villains you've seen in some of the trailers or promotional art, they're pretty much henchmen. One of them does have a Geass, although that's nothing special. And for the other one, you learn his backstory throughout the movie. Either way, both of these are even more forgettable. This includes the nightmares they end up using. Next up, let me bring up Shirley, since she got brought back. If anything, resurrected before Lelouch. Hopefully you're not looking forward to seeing Shirley in this movie, cause she doesn't do anything in this movie. She might as well just be dead. Same also goes for Lelouch's school buddies. That includes Nina, the blonde, and that super friend-zone dude. They pretty much just make a cameo in this movie. And talking about cameos, other people like Nonoli and Orange-kun, their importance in this movie is pretty much just a cameo. The only nice thing they did add to this movie was really showing off the surviving knights. If I'm forgetting anyone, just feel free to ask down below. Next up, the last person worth mentioning was Cornelia plus her servant. It really felt like they were trying to give her something important to do, it really just wasn't too interesting. Cornelia in particular also seemed to accept Lelouch's revival way too easily. It felt like there should have been more struggle, especially with her of all people. Then again, I haven't really ever seen any huge Cornelia fan, so perhaps that's why they didn't bother. Shifting gears, let's now talk about the animation. How was the Code Geass movie animation? For this, I'm just going to be brutally honest and say that I really didn't see anything that made me think that this is some high quality movie animation. It really just looked like what Code Geass would have looked like if they made the Code Geass TV anime today in 2019. If I had to point out what seemed to be movie-like animation, there's three things. The first really just being the characters' clothing. Their clothing was far more detailed compared to some of the simpler stuff done for TV anime. And the second thing, there's actually a certain villain scene near the end of the movie that they definitely took the animation quality up a notch. Although I'm not even sure why they bothered at that point. And number three, the eyes. They actually did some amazing job with the eyes, especially for Lelouch. This included Lelouch using his Geass, but also some non-Geass scenes. Next up, let's talk about the Code Geass nightmare fight scenes and some action scenes in general. As you've seen from the trailers, you're not going to be drowned with a lot of CG for all the CG nightmares in this movie. I should mention that they actually mixed in some non-CG animation for the nightmares, like the landslide, Guden, and some of the other nightmares when they're not doing any action scenes, or nothing too complex. For the actual nightmare fights involving the landslide and Guden, you have gotten a glimpse of the upgraded versions in the trailers. New figures coming for them too, by the way. At this point, both of these nightmares are just way too overpowered. You really don't even feel like they could lose at any point. That's how powerful they are. I mean, the destruction potential of them is just ridiculous. Which is ultimately part of the reason why these nightmare fights are totally forgettable. I was wondering, is it the CG that has anything to do with this? But just think about it a little bit more, whether this stuff was regular animation or CG, it really wouldn't have changed too much. Ultimately, if you're more sensitive to CG, especially used on CG mechs, this may be an issue for you. This actually gets into one of my slight negatives, which is when Suzaku and Kaden actually get into some nightmare issues. That's involving some of the nightmare fights. For me, this felt really forced. It was almost like, did you guys just get rusty over the years or something? Did you guys forget how to fight? You could clearly see you could get out of this situation if you think for yourself. This is combined with them almost relying on Lelouch too much as a commanding king piece of this whole situation. And here's another nightmare negative for nitpick. In the movie, they actually do bring some of the older nightmares back, which was freaking awesome to see. But then, they don't actually do anything with them. I was like, really? What the hell was even the point of that? Let me actually end this nightmare section on a positive. Somewhere within the movie, Kaden and Suzaku are forced to use some junk nightmares to battle with. Ironically, this stuff was way more intense and memorable, as long as you're discounting the fan service for the Gurren and Lancelot, and also any nostalgia factor. Next up, let me quickly mention the music. For this, I'm not even sure they actually used any new soundtrack for the movie, but if you loved the past Code Geass music, you're definitely gonna enjoy how much they blast some of your old favorites. They use the past music a ton throughout the movie, especially in the finale. And now for my overall thoughts. As once a huge Code Geass fan, was skeptical of the sequel once it got confirmed to be only a movie. At the end of the day, this movie is a mixed bag. It does have some obvious problems overall, but it was actually pretty enjoyable too. One of the main things that was really more of a disappointment was actually something not in the movie, which was really just the whole build-up around the Code Geass sequel for years and years. If you do take that into consideration, I would say the movie is a disappointment. But if you're someone that wasn't waiting for this, or could somehow separate that, then this Code Geass sequel can be seen as an enjoyable disappointment. So to answer the question at the start, should this Code Geass movie have even been made? Well, if they don't do anything else with Code Geass, then it was clearly only a cash grab. However, if they actually do more with Code Geass, then perhaps there's more to this. So, do I recommend this? Should you watch it? So far, I have mentioned a lot of issues with the movie, but I gotta admit, I sure as hell enjoyed it as a Code Geass fan. If you were ever a casual or hardcore Code Geass fan, and have accepted this is a different timeline than the TV anime, I highly recommend you check this out. At the very minimum, you'll have a good time, just don't expect anything too amazing. In general, if you ever enjoyed Code Geass, it's at least worth the watch when it comes out on Blu-ray. If I recall, Funimation is doing some showings in May. Next up, one final thing I'll touch on. I did mention sequel throughout this, and maybe I'll do a standalone video about this. I would just say that part of the reason it feels like they left so many things vague, and left the movie open-ended, was for someday to potentially have a sequel. And don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not saying that one is planned, but don't be surprised if they announce another Code Geass sequel project, whenever that may be. Hopefully it's not another decade away. And yes, let me address this, some of you guys are wondering. Personally, I was against this movie's sequel, but now that they actually have opened this Code Geass Pandora's box, I say just screw it. Might as well keep moving forward. So I hope you enjoyed that, and more importantly, let me hear your thoughts. Question of the day. What do you think about this Code Geass movie after my review? Are you still planning to see it? Or maybe it makes you want to see it more now. In general, do you think Code Geass should have even gotten a sequel? Or do you want more Code Geass sequels now? By the way, if you do want to know any specific movie spoiler, just ask down below. Just keep in mind more and more time is passing by since I've seen the movie, so better ask quickly. Anyway, definitely smash that thumbs up and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, you can expect weekly juicy anime videos. This includes a ton of videos on anime dropping this year, and almost all anime movies coming out since I do live in Japan. If you do want to know all the Code Geass movie spoilers, definitely check out my video on that. Be sure to set up bell notifications and I'll see you guys later.